Hello, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn workshop. My apologies for the brief delay. We had some technical difficulties, but we are here with Luz Cruz from the Query Kitchen Brigade to talk about how climate change affects the LGBTQ community.
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen now. Yeah, in a sense, in so many different ways that I'll be going over today, climate justice is queer liberation. And I think that our roles as queer individuals a part of the LGBTQIA community plus communities is crucial and important. So just starting off, climate change, right? We don't have an alternative planet to live on. There isn't a magical space shuttle that'll take us to a different place that is inhabitable, despite some people's beliefs. And so it is crucial to take care of the place that we are currently inhabiting. Simply as just a basis, simply because of that, right? When you talk about queer liberation, and talk with respects to environmental justice and climate justice, there are 17 principles that were created via the first National People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit. And first and foremost, let me say that all of this knowledge, all of this rhetoric with regards to environmental justice as it relates to queer liberation and queer justice comes from Black, Indigenous people of color. And so one of the principles states that environmental justice encompasses mutual respect and justice for all people, free from any form of discrimination or bias, which includes queer people, which includes people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. When you think about this in respect to percentages of homelessness, LGBTQ folks represent 7% of the homeless population, the youth do. That with regards to climate change, what happens to the homeless population when there are hurricanes? What happens to them when there are floods? What happens to them when there are fires? Where do they go? Who takes care of them? And these are important things to consider, not just with the homeless population, right? With regards to just those of us who have the privilege of inhabiting an apartment or being able to rent an apartment. It's not easy when you're openly queer, when you're openly trans. We face discrimination of all sorts with regards to job place, with regards to housing security, right? And so what happens if your house gets flooded and you need to move and that search becomes even more difficult? You end up becoming a part of this population of people who are homeless. It's happened to me. It's happened to countless other people that I know. And so the importance of us pushing back and fighting back against these systems that we know will hurt us is incredibly important. One of the things that I say, and I think that this really drives my work home for me and drives a point home for a lot of people, is that queer and trans people know what it's like to have laws and policies made to kill us. Right now there are 50 laws in various states preventing queer and trans people from doing a myriad of things, right? And there are countless of laws and there are countless of policies and permits right now in the government in various states allowing fracking to happen and coal mining to happen and water extraction, like currently in Minnesota, 5 billion gallons of water was drained from the Mississippi River to build a pipeline. And so when we think about the ways in which these resources are extracted from, it is very much similar to the ways in which queer and trans bodies are extracted from, right? We exist and are visible in popular media and are idealized in that way. And yet the violence against our bodies when it comes to state repression, when it comes to simply trying to walk down the street, still exists. And so I like to think of, via my spiritual practices, the earth is my kin, right? And so like how as individuals with these varying experiences of state repression, of discrimination, of violence against our bodies and the way that we choose to exist, how can we be in relation to the earth that is experiencing the same? And that means protecting it in the same way that we protect our like queer and trans family. Queer and trans people with regards to that protection, we've developed ways to become resilient. We've developed ways to like help our friends be housed or like have these microcosms of chosen families where we take care of each other, where we check up on each other, where we form like mental support systems for each other, emotional support systems, all these things, right? And that challenges societal norms. It challenges the cis heteronormative patriarchy. And it is in that those systems that we can then further replicate that to apply to the earth, right? So how can we be in community with the earth in a way that supports it and is mutually beneficial and a symbiotic relationship, right? What does it look like for us to stop resource extraction from the earth and to take what we need in order to survive, right? And also replenish and give back in the ways that we can and know how to. And so I think that if we take the models that we enact on a day-to-day basis and begin to apply those to the earth, there will be a shift with regards to the way that we are in relation to the earth. And yeah, this is the last slide, but we all deserve a planet where we can thrive and we can be safe in the same way that queer and trans people all deserve, like not just the earth, the earth and the plants and the trees and the animals deserve a planet where they can thrive and be safe, and so do queer and trans people. And I think in a lot of ways we embody a world that can be replicated, that can be regenerative, that can be healing and transformative. And I think that it is because of that that we need to be at the forefront of these movements. We know what sustainability looks like, and we know what it means. We know what it means to be in community with each other in a way that is whole, right? And so, yeah, I'm going to stop screen sharing and then just talk. And so I think that, all the things that I said, all these things are crucial. I think that it is important for us to take direct action with regards to that. Of course, to our varying abilities. There are various fights for this planet that are anti-extractive economies that are currently happening right now, that people can plug into if they want to and so desire. And then there are other ways to support, right? I think about, I mean, the biggest one is monetarily, right? But we all don't have access to that. But I think a lot about mutual aid. And I think about what does it mean to devote some time and energy into a cause that will then benefit you as well. And so in 2017, after Hurricane Maria hit the island of Puerto Rico and various other islands in the Caribbean, myself and a group of other people formed this group called Queer Kitchen Brigade. And our goal was simply to provide fresh produce to people on the island and bring that to people on the island who did not have access to that. And that inadvertently turned into us canning and fermenting that fresh produce in order to preserve its longevity, and then bringing that and shipping those items to Puerto Rico. Once we arrived there, things became different and our work became different in that we were helping out on farms and rebuilding farms, and that we were, helping rebuild people's houses, and distributing seeds to people and bringing people all manner of basic necessity that they needed in order to rebuild their farm for the sake of food sovereignty, right? When we think about climate justice, like I particularly think about food, right? And in order to be sovereign, you need to be able to feed yourself. It's a basic need, right? Food is a basic need. And so in this movement for food sovereignty, we did a lot of those things. Since then, our mission has transformed to be one that encompasses all frontline communities, right? So anyone who is affected by climate change, when you think about who is contributing to the most greenhouse gas emissions, it's not BIPOC people, but we are the most affected. It's not queer and trans people, but we are the most affected. And we are the most affected because of the class system with which most of us exist in, because of the access to resources that we have. And because of our identities, right? Because of plain old discrimination. And so our mission has moved towards that. And so since then, we have gone to the Mexican border in Tijuana to do border work there with migrant caravanners, and have contributed to the Line 3 campaign, which is a pipeline that is planning on pumping tar sands oil from Canada through Wisconsin, which is a fight that is still currently happening. We have contributed to a myriad of other fights and other disasters that have happened. And I think that the importance of queer people doing that work is just crucial. I think that when we think about queerness and when we think about biodiversity and a planet that is whole and healthy and regenerative, and is living to its fullest extent, we don't consider the gender variance of the planet. We don't consider the gender variance of the trees, of the flowers, of the animals that exist in this place. And I think that people use what their notion of nature is to make it so that trans people and queer people are faulty aberrations. They say things like it's against nature. when in fact it's not against nature. It is actually in like concurrence with nature for there to be gender diversity. And so yeah, I think that it's important and crucial for us to do this work in the way that we can. It's important and crucial for those of us who are able-bodied to put our bodies on the line to help out this planet, so that we can continue living on it, and not just for us, right? For future generations, for the queer and trans kids that are like growing up right now, and having to experience fires and floods and hurricanes and pandemics and not being able to truly be with the earth and be with themselves in a way that like isn't affecting their mental health. You know, I can't imagine what it would be like if I were, 10, 12 years old, queer, trans, and like having to like deal with a pandemic and then floods and then fires and hurricanes and like this, the earth literally like deteriorating in front of my eyes and not knowing what my future is going to look like. So yeah, that's.
Thank you. It's very eye-opening. There are a few questions in the chat. First is, how can individuals find out more information about this kind of work? And then I guess the second question is, how can they also get involved?
I mean, I would start locally. I also think that like we all have power. As a staunch anarchist and as an individual who does not believe in hierarchy and is anti-state, we all have power. And so I think first and foremost, reaching out into your networks and doing research about what it is that you want to get involved in and how close that is to where you exist geographically. And if that is a feasible possibility for you, then trying to plug in. I think foundationally, it is important for people who want to do this work to build community first. I think that, yes, while doing this work, there's trust that can be built in the midst of doing this work. And also, I think that like it is stronger when you have a community of people where your lives are intertwined in a way that exists outside of a political campaign or a movement. And then also, if you can't find something that's local to you, start something. Like you have the power to make change. And that sounds I hated that came out of my mouth. But it's true, right? Like you as an individual have power. And I think that a lot of the rhetoric with regards to state repression, a lot of the rhetoric that like keeps people at home and not out on the streets and not doing direct action is this belief that one individual isn't going to create change. But the fact of the matter is that there's a Nelson Mandela quote that I love using. It's like, when you show up as your fullest self, it gives people permission to show up as their fullest self. And so when you begin to do this work and show up in the ways that like hold community care and healing with just as much as importance as doing direct action and as fighting against the state, it gives other people see you. And then they're like, I can do that and I want to do that. And then they begin to show up. Queer Kitchen Brigade started with 5 people. And then in a span of 8 weeks, while we were canning and fermenting, there were hundreds of people that showed up to help out and do the thing because it was a cause that they cared about and they saw that people were already doing it. And so, yeah, first and foremost, like, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're not trying to, put energy into something that already exists, or do research on what exists in your community. And if you see that there is a gap, then try and fill that gap, and fill that gap with your friends. Get your friends involved, get your family members involved, and that's where I would start.
Thank you. That's all the questions we had in the chat. Thank you for taking the time to come in today and speak with us. It was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Same. Bye.
Thank you all for joining in as well today too.